It started like any other winter journey. Miles of snowy highway, headlights cutting through the growing dusk, and the promise of holiday warmth waiting on the other side. Daniel and Lisa Thompson were just another young couple heading home for Christmas, their laughter filling the cabin of a silver SUV as they made their way through Colorado's remote mountain passes. They were in love, freshly married and full of plans for the future, but none of those plans would come to pass. By the next morning, they would vanish without a trace. The last anyone heard from them was a call made at 9:17 p.m. The audio was later released, and to this day it chills everyone who hears it. Static dominates the recording, interspersed with Lisa's frantic voice. "We're stuck, no lights, there's ice everywhere." Then silence. The call dropped and they were never heard from again. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this one, filled with mystery, emotion, and truth, are what we bring to light every week. Don't miss what comes next. Daniel was 29, an elementary school teacher who coached local youth baseball. Lisa, 28, worked at a non-profit helping children with autism. They met in college, shared a love for road trips, photography, and old diners. Their wedding, just 6 months earlier, had been held in the backyard of Lisa's childhood home. Friends remembered it as joyful and full of laughter. They had been visiting Lisa's family in Telluride and were en route back to Denver, planning to make it by midnight. They chose to take a detour that added about an hour to their trip, Highway 318, known for its stunning views, but also for its isolation. Weather reports had issued advisories for a snowstorm approaching that evening. Lisa's sister, Rachel, had texted, "Be careful." "It's getting bad up there," Lisa replied with a snowman emoji and a selfie of her and Daniel wrapped in scarves. As the snow began to fall in heavy sheets, visibility dropped quickly. The road became more treacherous. The SUV's tires crunched over thin ice as Daniel, always the careful driver, slowed their pace. But even caution could not shield them from what was coming. The last ping from Lisa's phone came at 9:23 p.m., roughly 8 minutes after the 911 call. It registered near Wolf Creek Pass, an area notorious for landslides and sudden whiteouts. By dawn, when they still hadn't arrived in Denver, Lisa's mother contacted the police. What followed was a nightmare of unanswered questions and fruitless searches. But none of that was known yet, not in those first moments. At that point, it was still just concern, a growing unease that perhaps they had pulled over to wait out the storm or stopped at a motel with poor signal. No one imagined they had disappeared. Wolf Creek Pass spans nearly 10,000 feet above sea level, its roads winding through cliffs and forests cloaked in white during winter. The storm that night intensified quickly. Winds reached 40 miles per hour. Snowfall was measured at nearly 8 inches in just 3 hours. If someone had gone off-road or missed a curve, it might have been impossible to see the vehicle until spring. When the dispatcher reviewed the 911 call logs the next morning, the missed emergency stood out. Officers were sent to canvass the pass, hoping to find a car, a tire mark, anything. But fresh snowfall had buried all clues. A single guardrail near mile marker 67 had signs of scraping, but it led only to a deep ravine, and no tracks were visible. Daniel's parents, Tom and Maria Thompson, drove from Denver that same day, joining Lisa's family in an increasingly desperate effort to find them. "We just thought, they're smart, they're experienced with snow," Maria would later say. "They probably found a warm place to wait it out." But deep down, dread had already begun to settle. The couple's route should have taken them through safer, better lit roads. Authorities speculated they might have trusted a GPS that suggested the scenic detour as a faster option, not accounting for weather or seasonal closures. And once committed to the pass, turning back could have been nearly impossible in blizzard conditions. That night, Lisa's sister Rachel posted a photo of the couple on social media with the caption, "Please, if anyone has seen my sister and her husband, they were on the road near Wolf Creek Pass and didn't make it home. We are terrified." The post was shared over 10,000 times within hours. Tips started coming in, but none panned out. The snow continued to fall for days, and with it, any trace of Daniel and Lisa seemed to vanish completely into the white silence of the mountains. The alarm spread quickly once Daniel and Lisa were officially reported missing. Local authorities coordinated with search and rescue teams within hours. Helicopters were dispatched as soon as the weather allowed, and volunteers from nearby towns poured in to assist. But time was already slipping away, and the snow was still falling. By the second day, the mountain had become a maze of whiteness. Visibility barely stretched beyond a few yards. Search crews moved in tight formation, probing with poles, calling out the couple's names, listening for any response that never came. The wind carried their voices away like whispers. Sheriff Mark Peterson led the operation. A seasoned lawman who had worked in the Rockies for over 2 decades, he'd seen accidents, avalanches, and even disappearances before. But this one felt different. It was like the mountain had just opened up and swallowed them, he said later. No skid marks, no broken guardrail, nothing. Drones equipped with thermal cameras were flown over the pass, but the cold made battery life short, and dense snowfall obscured everything. Snowmobiles ventured deeper into narrow trails, but often had to turn back due to the risk of avalanches. With each passing hour, hope of a quick discovery began to fade. A break seemed possible when searchers found a single wool glove wedged beneath a rock near a narrow turnout. It was dark blue, similar to the pair Lisa had been wearing in the selfie she sent Rachel, but there was no other sign of them nearby. The glove was bagged and sent for analysis, yet no conclusive results came from it. The mountain kept its silence. Daniel's father, Tom, refused to stay idle. He joined the volunteers, trekking through knee-deep snow, holding on to the smallest chance that his son might be somewhere nearby, waiting. "I wasn't going to sit in a motel room and wait for someone to knock on the door," he told reporters. "I had to look." Helicopters returned to the skies on day 4, when the storm finally subsided enough to allow safe flying. From above, the landscape was haunting, untouched snow, shimmering and smooth with no visible tracks. The SUV, silver and compact, could have easily been hidden beneath just a few feet of fresh powder. The emotional toll on the families was immediate and devastating. Lisa's mother collapsed during a press conference, unable to hold back tears. Her sister Rachel appeared on television begging for help. "Please," she said, her voice cracking, "if anyone has seen anything, even a tire track, we just need to know." The community responded with compassion and urgency. Food drives were organized for the search crews. Local inns offered free lodging to volunteers. A candlelight vigil was held in Denver, where friends and colleagues of Daniel and Lisa gathered in freezing temperatures, holding up photos and praying for their safe return. As the search stretched into its second week, the theories began. Had they tried to leave the vehicle and find shelter? Had they accidentally driven off the road, hidden by a snowbank or drop-off? Were they injured and unable to signal for help? The sheer lack of evidence frustrated everyone. Then came a moment of renewed hope. A set of faint tracks was found leading away from a turnout near mile marker 70. Searchers followed them, hearts racing, but they ended abruptly at a steep embankment. Nothing below but rocks and trees. It was a dead end. Despite the setbacks, Sheriff Peterson refused to call off the search. "We owe it to the families," he said in a televised interview. "We keep going until we know." Back at base camp, each failed lead weighed heavier on everyone involved. Crews warmed up around propane heaters, their faces red from the cold and wind. Some volunteers broke down in tears. They were not just searching for strangers. By now, Daniel and Lisa had become part of their community, part of their collective hope and sorrow. Lisa's sister kept her phone volume on high, waiting for a miracle call or a ping. She replayed the last voicemail Lisa had left her days earlier, a cheerful message about snow, road snacks, and how excited they were to get home for Christmas. That voice so alive, I kept thinking they can't just be gone. Eventually, the search scaled back, not because people gave up, but because winter was winning. Avalanche risk increased daily, resources dwindled. Sheriff Peterson made the painful announcement on day 18. The official search would be suspended until spring, but he left no doubt. This wasn't the end. "We'll be back. When the snow clears, we'll be back." In the meantime, the families returned to their homes without answers, their grief suspended in a fog of uncertainty. Lisa's mother left her daughter's room untouched, still expecting the door to open. Tom Thompson sat by his front window each evening, staring into the cold, dark night. No one knew it then, but the truth of what had happened to Daniel and Lisa was hidden not far from where everyone had searched, buried beneath the very snow they had trudged through day after day. As weeks turned into months and the snow deepened across the high passes, the official search may have halted, but the mystery surrounding Daniel and Lisa only grew louder. What had begun as a missing person case evolved into a national obsession. News anchors dissected timelines, commentators speculated on motives, and internet forums lit up with hundreds of theories, some rooted in logic, others spiraling into the bizarre. On one true crime podcast, a host confidently stated, "There's no way two people just vanish on a paved highway without some kind of interference. Something happened to them." Theories ranged from a criminal encounter to an elaborate escape from their own lives. Others pointed fingers at the authorities, suggesting incompetence or even a cover-up. The online sleuths pored over every public record available: marriage license, tax forms, old social media posts, and even traffic citations. A Reddit thread titled "Vanished Couple Had Secrets" gained over 20,000 upvotes in less than a week. It claimed that Daniel once had a minor dispute with a neighbor over property lines, an irrelevant detail twisted into a sinister subplot. Even more outlandish were the supernatural explanations. One user suggested the couple had stumbled into a time rift or a secret military facility. "Too clean," they wrote. "No debris, no signs of panic, no bodies. Classic alien abduction scenario." Some even mocked the families for not telling the full truth. Lisa's sister Rachel became a reluctant spokesperson, trying to combat the conspiracy storm. In one interview, she said, "They were good people, they didn't run away, they didn't fake anything, they loved their lives." That's what makes this so hard to accept. There's just nothing. Daniel and Lisa's digital footprints told a story that contradicted the chaos online. Their shared Instagram was filled with road trip photos, pet videos, and cozy date nights. Daniel had posted a picture just 3 days before they vanished, him and Lisa sipping cocoa at a roadside diner, with the caption, "Our favorite kind of detour." Investigators dug deep into their background. No significant debts, no criminal records, no reports of abuse or domestic tension. Their employers vouched for their reliability. Friends described them as inseparable, grounded, and planning to start a family. One friend from college noted, "They were the kind of couple you just assumed would make it. They fit together so easily." Still, the absence of evidence invited speculation. Was there a third person involved? Could someone have forced them off the road? Investigators interviewed dozens of locals along the highway, including reclusive residents living in cabins near the pass. Nothing unusual was reported. One ranger mentioned hearing engine noises around 10 p.m. the night they disappeared, but the direction was uncertain, and in those mountains sound carried in unpredictable ways. Tips continued to flow into the sheriff's office. One man claimed he saw a silver SUV parked near a trailhead weeks after the couple vanished. Another insisted he spoke with Daniel at a gas station in New Mexico. Each report was followed up. Each led nowhere. The SUV was gone, the gas station had no footage, and the sightings were unverified. A retired detective named Gene Wallace took an interest in the case. Though no longer active, he had consulted on several high-profile disappearances. He reviewed the timeline en route and concluded, "This doesn't feel like a clean crime. If it were a planned vanishing, there would have been financial footprints. If it were foul play, we'd have found something, but the total void?" That's the clue. Wallace's theory was that something natural, something sudden, had taken them. "People forget how unforgiving those mountains are," he said. "The land doesn't care how careful you are." Back online, a wave of empathy surged amid the noise. A digital campaign launched with the hashtag #FindDanielAndLisa, urging renewed searches in the spring. Crowdfunding efforts raised thousands to support private investigators, thermal drones, and search dogs, once conditions allowed. The case became a cultural mirror, reflecting the public's fear of the unknown and fascination with unsolved mysteries. Documentaries began production, armchair detectives mapped every turn on the highway with GPS overlays. Some even simulated weather patterns from that night, trying to predict likely drift zones where the vehicle could have ended up. Yet through all the noise, one reality remained unchanged. Daniel and Lisa were still gone. For those closest to them, the theories, no matter how wild, felt like distractions from the raw pain of absence. Rachel put it best in a post that went viral. "We don't need theories, we need them. We need answers, not speculation. Please, if you know anything at all, say something." The mountain had become both a symbol and a silence. It had consumed their story, buried it under ice and secrecy, leaving behind only questions that grew louder as time passed. And through every whispered rumor, every headline, every obsessive Reddit thread, the simple truth remained untouched. Two people had gone for a drive and never came home. Time, as it always does, continued its march. Days turned to weeks, then months, and eventually years. The case of Daniel and Lisa Thompson faded from headlines, replaced by newer tragedies, fresher mysteries. But for their families, the passing of time didn't dull the ache. It only deepened the void left behind by the unanswered. Year one brought memorials. Friends gathered in parks and churches, reading poems and sharing memories. Rachel, Lisa's sister, sang the same lullaby they had loved as children. Tom and Maria Thompson, Daniel's parents, stood hand in hand at the edge of the mountain pass, releasing two lanterns into the sky. They floated silently until vanishing into the darkness, just like their children. By the second year, the memorials became quieter, more private. Rachel continued leaving messages on Lisa's old voicemail. "Hey, just calling to tell you about Mom's garden," she would say. "You'd be proud of the sunflowers this year, and Daniel would have laughed at Dad's new beard." She kept the line active, paying the bill every month, unwilling to let go of even a digital thread. Each Christmas, Daniel and Lisa's chairs remained empty. Stockings were still hung for them. The pain evolved, not lessened, but shifted into a strange companion, one that lingered in every silent moment, every quiet snowfall. Sheriff Peterson retired in year 4. At his farewell gathering, a young deputy asked him about the case. He paused, looked out toward the horizon and simply said, "That mountain holds its secrets tight." He never stopped believing the couple would one day be found. But belief wasn't enough. Files were boxed and archived, but the label on Daniel and Lisa's case always remained on top. Whenever new snow melted and hikers returned to the backcountry, the sheriff's department received renewed calls. Bones found, a vehicle spotted, a camera discovered in a stream. But every single one ended in disappointment. None belonged to the missing couple. In the silence left by official efforts, the families tried to carry forward. Lisa's mother began writing letters to her daughter, storing them in a wooden box under her bed. "Dear Lisa," one letter read, "I saw a woman today with your laugh. It brought me to tears in the middle of a grocery store. I wish I could tell you how much I miss you." Daniel's father took a different path. He became obsessed with survival stories and geography. He printed topographic maps of the pass, highlighting new areas every spring to walk alone. "I know he's out there," he told a reporter once. "He wouldn't leave without fighting to come home." Year 6 brought new pain. The authorities officially declared Daniel and Lisa legally deceased. For Rachel, it was unbearable. She refused to sign any paperwork, calling it a betrayal. "How can you declare someone gone when you haven't even found them?" she asked. But without death certificates, legal matters became frozen. Accounts, estates, insurance, all held in limbo. Some community members pushed for a memorial site near the pass, but the families declined. "Not until we have them," Maria said. "Not until we can bring them home." Through the years, the mountain remained unchanged, majestic and cold, indifferent to the ache it held. Seasons came and went. Tourists drove past the very stretch of road that had swallowed Daniel and Lisa, unaware of the story buried beneath the snow. And then something began to change, not in the hearts of the grieving, but in the land itself. By year 8, scientists monitoring the region reported unusual melt rates in several glaciers near Wolf Creek Pass. Rising temperatures, they said, were accelerating ice retreat at unprecedented speeds. Exposed rock faces and thawing streams revealed new terrain that hadn't been visible in decades. No one connected this to the Thompsons, at least not yet. But for those still holding on to hope, it was enough to whisper one more prayer, to wonder, could the mountain be ready to give up its secret? Rachel, still posting updates on the Find Daniel and Lisa Facebook page, wrote, "Spring's coming, and with it, the melt. Every year I pray that maybe, just maybe, we'll find something." This year feel different. The comment section filled with quiet echoes of hope. Still praying. We haven't forgotten. Come home, Daniel and Lisa. Nothing had changed, and yet everything felt poised to. For now, the truth remained buried. But beneath the ice, beneath the silence, something was waiting. The mountain may have swallowed them once, but it would not keep them forever. It happened on a late summer afternoon, nearly 9 years after Daniel and Lisa vanished. A group of hikers, exploring a newly exposed trail near the base of a retreating glacier not far from Wolf Creek Pass, noticed something glinting beneath a patch of melting ice. At first, they thought it was scrap metal or debris from a fallen tree. But as the sun warmed the slope and the ice thinned, shapes began to emerge, too structured, too familiar to be natural. One of them stepped closer, heart pounding, and realized what they were seeing. It was a vehicle, a silver SUV, partially entombed in the remnants of the glacier, its roof just breaching the surface. They called emergency services immediately. Rescue crews responded within hours, cautiously carving away ice with precision tools and warm water. The vehicle's make and model were confirmed before it was fully uncovered. It was a 2015 Subaru Forester, registered to Daniel Thompson. Word spread rapidly, and by nightfall the families had been notified. What they found inside confirmed what no one wanted to believe, but had always feared. 2 bodies, still buckled in their seats. The driver's hands were wrapped tightly around the steering wheel, the passenger leaning slightly toward the console. After nearly a decade, the cold had preserved them in chilling stillness. Lisa's scarf, Daniel's jacket, the dashboard with its cracked GPS screen, all were intact. Inside the back seat, rescuers found a backpack wedged between the seats, partially unzipped. It contained a journal, a few snacks long expired, and a digital camcorder wrapped in a wool beanie. Forensic teams worked quickly. While official identification took time, the families were informed gently. All signs pointed to Daniel and Lisa. The SUV's tires were worn, the front bumper dented, and one of the windows cracked inward. A map lay folded on the passenger side floor, marked with a red pen. The location, just off an abandoned service road, was less than 4 miles from the last cell signal ping years earlier. It was close, achingly close to where the original search had focused. But in the chaos of snowfall and shifting terrain, the vehicle had gone unnoticed, buried within hours of the storm that consumed it. The discovery reignited national interest overnight. News vans returned to the pass. Headlines ran with a mixture of awe and heartbreak. Vanished couple found after 9 years, frozen in time. Commentators speculated on what led them there, what went wrong, and why it took so long to find them. But for the families, it wasn't about the cameras. It was about closure. Rachel flew to Colorado the moment she heard. Standing at the base of the mountain, looking at the spot where her sister had rested all these years, she wept. "I never stopped hoping," she whispered to the wind. "And now, we bring you home." Sheriff Peterson, now retired, returned briefly for the recovery. He stood beside the young officers working the scene, eyes red-rimmed. "I always said we'd find them," he murmured. "I just never thought it would take this long." The camcorder, though damaged, still held power. Its memory card was intact. Forensic techs carefully extracted the files, preparing to review what could be the couple's final hours. But those details, what they said, how they felt, would come later. For now, the focus was on honoring their return. The bodies were flown to a Denver facility for full examination. Early reports indicated no signs of physical trauma beyond what would be expected from cold and environmental exposure. There were no broken bones, no indication of foul play. It appeared they had simply become trapped, caught in a brutal storm, taken off course by a wrong turn, and consumed by the elements before help could reach them. As the news settled over the country, people responded with an outpouring of emotion. Thousands left comments on tribute posts, strangers sent flowers, former students of Daniel's left notes, "He was my favorite teacher." I still remember how he made me feel smart. Parents of children Lisa had helped through her non-profit shared memories of her compassion. And then there was the journal. Its pages were damp at the edges, but legible. Written in Lisa's hand, it captured fleeting moments during those final hours. The descent into snow, the fading light, the cold creeping into their skin. She wrote about love, about fear, about not wanting Daniel to see her cry, about how even then she believed someone would come. On the last page, a simple line: "If you find this, please tell our families we never stopped trying." That sentence echoed across every broadcast, every article, every retelling. Daniel and Lisa had not simply vanished. They had endured. They had fought. And now at last, they had been found. The forensic analysis began immediately, piecing together the fragments of Daniel and Lisa's final hours. The condition of their bodies confirmed what had long been feared: death by hypothermia. Exposure in the extreme cold had overtaken them gradually, likely while they were still inside the SUV. No evidence of physical trauma, no defensive wounds, no indication of struggle. They hadn't been attacked, they hadn't crashed. They had simply gotten stuck in a place where time froze faster than help could arrive. Autopsy reports noted that both had been wearing winter clothing but not survival-grade gear. Daniel's fingers showed signs of frostbite, his skin blackened in places. Lisa's were clasped around a hand warmer. The air inside the vehicle had been still and frigid. The cracked window had allowed snow to blow inside, accelerating the cold. Investigators reconstructed the scene using data from the vehicle and notes found in the journal. It appeared they had tried to turn back after realizing the road was worsening. Tire tracks, preserved in the surrounding earth under layers of ice, suggested an attempt to reverse down a slope, only to slide sideways and get wedged against a cluster of rocks. Stuck, visibility dropping, and signal lost. They were stranded. The backpack contained wrappers from granola bars, 2 bottles of water, and a flashlight with dead batteries. No emergency flares. No blankets beyond what was already in the back seat. It was clear they had not prepared for a long wait. Then came the camcorder. After carefully drying and restoring its internal components, tech experts managed to recover several video files. The footage was grainy, shaky at times, but unmistakably real. In the first clip, Lisa's face appeared, her breath fogging the lens. Her voice was calm, deliberate. "Okay," she said softly. "We're on day 2, no one's come. Still no signal. The snow keeps coming down. I'm scared." She turned the camera to Daniel, who offered a faint smile. "We've got snacks. We're warm, for now. We're staying positive." In later clips, their energy changed. Their voices slowed, their movements dulled. Lisa read aloud from a book they had found under the seat. Daniel spoke about childhood memories. They sang softly to distract themselves from the creeping cold. In the second-to-last video, Lisa spoke directly to her sister. "Rachel, if this ever gets found, tell Mom I love her. Tell Dad I'm not mad about Christmas. I was just tired. And you, don't feel guilty. You told us to be careful. We just thought we could make it." Her eyes glistened. She reached for Daniel's hand. "He's the love of my life. We kept warm as long as we could. We didn't give up." In the final clip, there was no talking. The lens faced upward through the windshield, snowflakes melting against the glass. The audio was quiet. Only the wind could be heard. Lisa's journal filled in the rest. Her final entry was dated 3 days after their initial 911 call. "Daniel isn't waking up," she wrote. "He's cold. I think he's gone. I'm so tired. I can't stop shaking, but I'll wait. Someone will come. They have to." The simplicity of her words cut through everything else. It was not a dramatic end. It was heartbreak wrapped in silence. Experts later confirmed that within hours of the storm's peak, the vehicle had been buried under nearly 4 feet of snow, followed by layers of compacted ice from subsequent storms. The location, once a disused maintenance path, had been abandoned after rockfalls blocked its southern exit years earlier. No signage had warned travelers of the risk. The revelation sparked new debate. Could their deaths have been prevented with better infrastructure? Would a GPS with updated mapping data have saved them? Or was it simply a tragic intersection of nature and human error? For the families, there were no easy answers, but there was relief in knowing. In seeing finally that their children had not suffered needlessly, not been taken by violence or malice, but had faced the storm with dignity and each other. "I watched the footage," Rachel said in a quiet interview. "It destroyed me. And yet, I'm so grateful for it, because I saw her, I saw them. I saw how much love they had, even in the worst moment." The camcorder was returned to the families who chose not to release the videos to the public. Only fragments were shared through media with permission. What remained belonged to them, sacred and personal. The world had speculated for years, but now the mystery was no longer theory, it was testimony. Of fear, yes, but also of resilience. Of two people facing the impossible, not with panic but with grace. And though their story had reached its answer, the ripple effect was only beginning. With the discovery confirmed and the evidence recovered, investigators turned their attention to retracing Daniel and Lisa's journey in exact detail. Using GPS data from the recovered device and the timestamps from the camcorder, they reconstructed the tragic chain of decisions that led them to that forgotten stretch of road. Initially, the route they had chosen was logical. Highway 160 through Wolf Creek Pass, commonly used by drivers looking to avoid the heavier traffic on I-70. But somewhere around 8:45 p.m., Daniel's GPS rerouted them onto a lesser-known service road, a shortcut according to the outdated device. Unbeknownst to them, the road had been decommissioned 5 years prior due to rock slides and was no longer maintained. No updated signage marked it as closed. Daniel had likely trusted the GPS over his instincts. Investigators speculated that as snow thickened, visibility dropped to near zero. With no cell service, turning back might have seemed impossible. The narrow mountain road allowed for little room to maneuver, and once the SUV began to skid on black ice, they may have found themselves stuck on the slope with no clear view of what lay ahead or behind. What emerged was a picture of desperation met with terrible luck. They were just over 1 mile from a ranger outpost, one that had been closed for the winter and unstaffed. A rescue, had it been mounted within hours, might have saved them, but the storm buried their tracks before any help could have known where to look. Photos recovered from Lisa's camera gave visual context. Shots of the snow as it fell harder, the road narrowing, a worried glance between the couple. In the last image, taken at 9:05 p.m., Daniel is seen standing beside the car, flashlight in hand, the snow already waist-deep around him. The GPS error became a focal point of national debate. A wave of criticism struck major navigation companies. How could a route flagged as closed for years still be offered as a viable option? How many other travelers had followed similar paths without realizing the danger? Public safety officials called for immediate updates to mapping data and stronger coordination between state departments and digital services. "We rely on technology to keep us safe," one official stated, but it failed them. And it could fail others. The discovery of the road's condition shocked many. It wasn't merely narrow, it was hazardous. Guardrails were missing. Erosion had weakened large portions of the shoulder. One wrong move would have sent the vehicle into the ravine. The fact that Daniel and Lisa managed to avoid a crash spoke to their caution even in panic. But it wasn't just the path that failed them. Investigators uncovered records showing that the service road was meant to be permanently blocked by a gate after its closure. That gate had been damaged by a fallen tree 2 winters prior and never repaired. The opening allowed Daniel's vehicle to pass through undeterred. This was a cascade of oversights, the report concluded. No single point of failure, but a series of small breakdowns that together created a deadly trap. Media outlets latched onto the phrase. Headlines read, "Trapped by technology and time." Experts in transportation safety, cartography, and cold weather survival all weighed in, analyzing every choice the couple made. but none of it changed the outcome. The case sparked broader conversations about wilderness preparedness. Outdoor stores reported surges in sales of emergency beacons and thermal blankets. Blogs shared tips on what to pack for winter travel. Social media campaigns circulated with messages like, "Don't just trust the map," and "If the road looks wrong, turn around." Some blamed Daniel for the decision to continue. Others blamed the system, but those closest to them focused on understanding, not judgment. Rachel, when asked about the route in an interview, said, "I think they thought they were being smart. They didn't want to worry us. They thought they could push through." I probably would have done the same. A documentary crew retraced their path months later, showing just how easily a wrong turn could become irreversible in that terrain. Viewers were stunned at how fast the road vanished into the trees, how the slope descended without warning, how the cell signal dropped within seconds of entering the curve. And in every retelling, the same image lingered, of a couple surrounded by beauty and danger, caught in the fragile space between modern confidence and nature's indifference. The answers, so long sought, had come. But with them came hard truths, not just about Daniel and Lisa's fate, but about the systems so many take for granted. Systems that, when flawed, turn into traps. And for all the clarity gained, one question remained etched into the hearts of those who followed their story. If just one sign had stood where it should have, would they still be here? For the families, the discovery brought more than closure. It reopened the wounds they had learned to carry in silence. Grief, once suspended in ambiguity, now had shape, texture, and timeline. There were answers now, yes, but those answers came wrapped in pain. Rachel found herself replaying the camcorder footage late at night, both unable and unwilling to look away. "It was like they were reaching through time," she said. "Like they left those messages for us, not just to say goodbye, but to keep us connected." She printed one still frame, Lisa's faint smile, huddled beside Daniel, and framed it on her nightstand. Below it, she wrote words from Lisa's journal. "We didn't give up. The families held a joint memorial service. Hundreds attended, friends, co-workers, former students, and total strangers who had followed the story for years. A hall in Denver was filled with flickering candles, photos from Daniel and Lisa's life, and the sound of soft piano music. People stood to speak one after another, telling stories about how the couple had touched their lives. One former colleague from Lisa's non-profit recalled, "She had a gift for making the most invisible kids feel seen." Another from Daniel's old school said, "He didn't just teach math, he taught confidence. He believed in his students when they didn't believe in themselves." Rachel read aloud from Lisa's journal, pausing when her voice cracked. She wrote, "Tell Rachel not to blame herself. We knew the risk. We chose this road together. I'm still learning how to forgive myself, but I hear her now, and I'm trying." The event ended with a video montage of Daniel and Lisa's travels, road trips, hiking, lazy Sunday mornings in their apartment. In one clip, Daniel was dancing badly in the kitchen while Lisa laughed, filming him. It played in silence. No one needed words. Out of their tragedy, something larger began to form. A memorial fund was established in their names, focused on mountain safety awareness. Donations poured in from across the country. The fund partnered with outdoor retailers to distribute free emergency kits to travelers headed through remote routes. It supported signage upgrades, trail cameras, and public education on navigating rural areas. The first bill to pass was the Thompson Safety Notice Act, requiring local governments to update navigation databases with real-time road conditions and closures. It wasn't a sweeping reform, but it was a start. Lisa's mother took on a quieter role, organizing support groups for families of the missing. "The waiting breaks you in slow motion," she said at one gathering. "You stop breathing properly. Your life holds its breath for years. I want to help others exhale." Tom Thompson, meanwhile, found solace in speaking at schools about wilderness safety. He turned maps and survival kits into tools of purpose, determined that what happened to his son wouldn't happen to someone else's. But grief is not linear. There were days Rachel couldn't get out of bed. Nights when Tom stared at the stars for hours, speaking aloud to Daniel. Moments when Lisa's mother would pick up the phone and dial her daughter's old number, just to hear the disconnection message. Healing came in moments, never all at once. Letters flooded in from people who had never met Daniel or Lisa, but felt bound to them. A mother in Wisconsin wrote, "I changed my route because of your story, and I made it home safely." A truck driver sent a photo of his dashboard with an emergency kit marked in memory of the Thompsons. A child who had been in Daniel's third-grade class wrote, "Mr. T made me believe I was smart. I still carry that." And then there was the moment that surprised everyone. 6 months after the discovery, a package arrived at Rachel's door. It contained a worn notebook, a snow globe with a cabin inside, and a note. It read, "These were found in our cabin attic. We had no idea they belonged to your sister and Daniel until we saw their story. We hope they bring comfort." It turned out that during their final trip, Daniel and Lisa had stopped at a roadside shop and bought souvenirs. Somehow the items were misplaced and ended up with a box of old stock that got resold. It was a simple trinket, but in Rachel's hands, it felt like a message. They had lived, they had laughed, they had loved. The public moved on, as the world does. But in the quiet spaces between headlines and hashtags, Daniel and Lisa's story remained alive, not because of how they died, but because of how they lived. And because those who loved them refused to let them become just another cautionary tale. They became a symbol of perseverance, of grace under pressure, of love even in the darkest night. The ripple effect of Daniel and Lisa's story extended far beyond their families and hometown. As their case spread across the country and eventually the world, conversations began shifting. It was no longer just about one couple's tragedy. It became a discussion on how society prepares for, prevents and responds to disappearance in remote terrain. The first wave of impact came through policy. Lawmakers in Colorado introduced new legislation mandating clear and permanent closure signage for all decommissioned roads, especially those within proximity to high-altitude passes. The law required these roads to be digitally flagged in all major GPS systems and for those systems to synchronize updates quarterly with state databases. It passed unanimously. The Thompson Visibility Standard, as it came to be known, wasn't just a memorial gesture. It was a structural change, ensuring that other families wouldn't face the same fate due to outdated navigation or missing signage. Within a year, similar bills were proposed in Washington, Oregon, and parts of the Northeast, where mountainous winter driving posed similar risks. But legislation was only the beginning. Non-profits specializing in wilderness safety saw a sharp uptick in funding. One Colorado-based group launched a national awareness campaign using Daniel and Lisa's faces with the tagline, "One wrong turn shouldn't cost a life." Their story became the emotional core of brochures, online safety courses, and driver training programs. Rescue teams, previously underfunded and under-resourced, began receiving grants tied directly to remote area preparedness. Portable communication towers were tested for deployment in key regions. Drones with infrared sensors became standard gear for winter searches. Even outdoor apps started integrating risk zones based on terrain, weather, and traffic data. A documentary titled Frozen Silence. The Daniel and Lisa story premiered at a major film festival, drawing critical acclaim. Rather than sensationalizing, it honored the couple's humanity, their love story, and their unintended legacy. Viewers left theaters in tears, and online viewership passed 3 million in less than 2 weeks. The docu-series sparked additional reforms. School programs adopted modules about survival essentials for road travel. Auto companies began including basic winter emergency packs in vehicles sold in snowy regions. What once was considered niche knowledge became part of the national conversation. Meanwhile, technology firms weren't exempt from scrutiny. GPS companies faced mounting pressure to improve their real-time data accuracy. A class action lawsuit was filed by another family whose loved one had died after being directed onto a hazardous route. Though the case wasn't directly tied to Daniel and Lisa, their story was cited over a dozen times in the filing. As a result, several companies partnered with state transportation departments, promising rapid integration of closure alerts, elevation risk markers, and even seasonal route filters that users could toggle manually. One company released a public statement: "No more silent paths, no more unseen dangers, unseen." We owe that much to Daniel and Lisa, but progress was more than digital and legislative. It was personal. At community centers and churches, Lisa's sister began hosting open forums for those living with unresolved grief. "Missing persons cases leave a wound unlike any other," she said. "There's no end, no funeral, no place to visit, just waiting." Her sessions weren't just therapy, they were acknowledgement. Rachel used the platform to push for changes in how long searches were maintained. "We call it the critical window," she said. "Too often, decisions are made based on time and budget. But what if we measured in distance instead, in silence, in what's actually left behind?" That question sparked national review. Several counties adopted persistence protocols to maintain scaled search efforts beyond initial timeframes, especially in winter-related vanishings. These protocols aim to balance resource strain with compassion, and with the haunting reminder that sometimes help arrives too late only because it was stopped too soon. Technology, too, shifted. Affordable satellite pings for civilian use became more accessible. Emergency locator apps were re-engineered to operate even in airplane mode, periodically attempting SOS bursts when in signal range. Lisa's name appeared on the beta version of one such feature, Lisa Mode, designed for use by female travelers navigating remote areas alone. Even years after their recovery, their names still resonated. At a wilderness safety conference, a young woman stood and spoke. "I'm here because of them," she said. "My car spun out last winter on a trail in Utah. I remembered Daniel and Lisa. I had a signal flare in my glove box because of their story. That flare saved me." Their loss was profound, but their memory had become action, change, legacy. Still, not every transformation came from grand gestures or sweeping reforms. Some were simple, personal, private. Parents checked in more often. Hikers left more detailed notes about their routes. Friends sent quick texts, made it through the pass. All good. Because now they knew, and because knowing didn't just mean understanding the danger, it meant honoring the lives that had taught it. After nearly a decade of uncertainty, Daniel and Lisa Thompson were finally laid to rest. The memorial service, held in a quiet cemetery near Denver, was a culmination of years of heartache, hope, and unanswered questions. Families, friends, and community members gathered to say goodbye, not to a mystery, but to two people who had touched so many lives. The atmosphere was heavy, but peaceful. As the soft hum of a cello filled the air, Rachel stood before the crowd, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "For years, we lived between hope and despair," she said. "Today we choose to remember their love, their courage, and their light." The service included readings from Lisa's journal, voices recalling Daniel's kindness, and moments of silent reflection. It was not just a farewell, it was a celebration of a life interrupted but never forgotten. Yet, despite the closure, some questions lingered. Questions about timing, possibility, and fate. Could they have been found sooner? Would different technology or faster response have saved them? Those who knew the mountains understood that some answers remain forever beyond reach. The wilderness can be merciless, and nature's grip unyielding. But their story became more than tragedy. It became a catalyst for change, a symbol of human resilience, and the urgent need for safety reforms. Road signs were updated, new emergency beacons installed along treacherous routes, and real-time alerts incorporated into navigation apps nationwide. State officials credited the Thompsons' case as a turning point for policy improvements that have since saved countless lives. Lisa's sister founded the Thompson Foundation for Mountain Safety, which funds education, rescue technology, and survivor support. Rachel's tireless advocacy has inspired lawmakers and citizens alike, proving that from profound loss, hope can grow. Daniel's father spoke often at schools, sharing lessons about preparedness and the fragility of life. "My son's story is a reminder to never take the road or the people beside you for granted," he would say. Perhaps most moving of all was the final gift left behind, the recovered camcorder footage. Though private to the family, select clips were shared with the public. The videos revealed not just the final struggle, but the enduring love and strength between Daniel and Lisa in their last hours. Their words echoed a profound truth. Even in the darkest moments, connection remains. The nation watched, hearts breaking and healing together. As one reporter put it, their love story didn't end in the snow. It lives on in every step taken towards safer roads, in every act of kindness, and in the memory of those who refuse to forget. And now, as you've journeyed through this story, we invite you to carry it forward. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel. Every subscription helps us bring you more powerful tales like this one. Stories that reveal the strength of the human spirit and the mysteries we seek to solve. Before you go, click the video on your screen. Discover another incredible case, one that challenges everything we think we know about disappearance and survival, because every story matters, every life remembered. Thank you for watching.